everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy Wednesday to y'all. I'm so glad that y'all stopped by today. Today's video is all about my favorite process in quilting, and that is binding. I love me some binding. So some of you who are really new to quilting might be asking, what exactly is binding? So I've got a quilt here just to give a little demonstration. But it is actually this strip of fabric along the edge, because, when we make quilts, we may piece our top together and then we get some backing and some batting and we quilt it and then we cut it and everything is still exposed, right? So that binding keeps everything covered, help hold it together, binds those raw edges, and it makes it look really pretty. So what kind of things are you going to need for binding? Well, some of them are recommended and some of them you absolutely need. Like if you're going to do some machine binding, you'll need a sewing machine. I am actually using the French fold method or double fold method in binding. That's what I'm demonstrating here today. And I am going to do it with machine and hand stitch. Okay, so I'll need the machine, and because I'm going to do some hand stitching, I'll need a needle. Now I'll be real honest with you, I don't have a preference in needles when I'm doing my binding. It just, as long as I can see the eye of the needle to thread it and I can hold it, I'm good. So I don't really have any suggestions on that, because for me it's all about what's comfortable for you. Okay, you also need some thread. Now, the thing about thread is you want to match it to the binding material, not the backing, but the binding. So as you can see, this is a light blue fabric. I should be using a light blue thread. However, because I wanted you to be able to see it on camera, I'm actually going to use a dark blue. So I wanted just to make that aware for you, that you want to match your thread to the fabric of the binding, okay? It helps hide those stitches even better. One of the recommended is walking foot. We have a lot of layers we're going through. So because the walking foot is designed for that, to help pull all that fabric together from top and bottom, this is highly recommended. But I will tell you, before I even had a walking foot, I have binded quilts with my general presser and it works. This just made it a lot easier. So if you have one of these, I would highly encourage you to get it loaded on your machine. Another suggested item are these clips. Again, it's not necessary. You could use pins, thicker ones, because you're going through so many layers. You could use pins, and there are some people, they don't use anything at all. So it's just my preferred method, and again, it's not necessary, but you'll see them in the video. And then of course, you need your fabric, okay, for your binding. And your quilt that's been quilted. But as far as the material, the fabric, some patterns will tell you or suggest to you how wide your strips need to be and how many strips. But sometimes your patterns don't. So once you have selected your fabric, you might want to know how much yardage you'll need for the binding or how many strips to cut. So I have put together a free binding calculator that will help you figure out how many strips and how much yardage, if you have to purchase that yardage separate out of a kit or anything like that. So if you would like that, I'll put it in the description box below. Just hit the link, provide your name and email, and I'll send that straight to you, just for you, okay? Makes life a lot easier to have, and it's a PDF form, so you can use it over and over. It's there for you forever, so you can always have that in your stash of resources. Now with the double fold or the French fold method, the most common sizes that I have seen of strips are 2-inch, 2¼ 2½, 2 3/4, and 3 inch. So anywhere between 2 inch and 3 inch is what I have seen. I prefer 2¼ and sometimes I've used 2½, but usually it's 2¼ It's just my preferred. You'll figure that out in due time, but you don't want a whole lot of extra off the side. You want to keep it tight, because if there's anything that's extra off of the ends, it might wear faster, and then you'll have to fix it later. So 2¼ seems to work really well with me. I know it's really popular for the French fold. So once you have your strips cut, once you've decided on your size, unless you're following a pattern, and it tells you and you want to use that size, because you're never obligated, right? But get those strips cut, and then we'll go to the next part. I will tell you, for this video, there's going to be a lot of transitions because there's several parts to go through. I just want to give you a heads up. I'm trying to condense this and make it a lot not so long, because I could talk for hours on binding. I love binding, but we don't have time for that. We want to get to binding our own quilts. So I'm going to go ahead and do this next transition. You're going to be at my cutting table in my sewing machine, because we're going to start to put these strips together. Okay, so I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I've changed my mind a little bit, and I've sewn all of my strips together except for the last two. So I'm going to throw some pictures up intermittently with this one, and then I'll pull you in closer for the second one, and then this step will be done. So right now we're joining these strips together, okay? And what you want to do is you want to take your first strip and you want to put it so that it's wrong side facing down, right side facing up, okay? Then you want to take the strip you're joining and you want to put the right side down, wrong side up. So basically your right sides are going to be together. And when you place it down, as you can see in the picture, you want to leave about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch on each one. And you're going to sew from a corner to a corner, which I'll draw a line on that picture for you. Now this is not necessary, it's just kind of the thing that I do. I can't sew a straight line to save my life. So I take a ruler and I place it down that corner to corner, and I take an it's not an erasable pen, it's a disappearing marker, and I draw a line from corner to corner. And then just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere, I'm going to go ahead and pin it, and you'll see. Now when you pin, you want to make sure you're not pinning too close so that when you run it through your sewing machine, it'll hit that pin. But it'll at least keep that together for you. And then you just want to take those strips to your sewing machine and get it all lined up. And you're just going to basically sew straight down that line if you drew one. If not, you're just going to go to that corner to corner. Okay. Okay. So now the next one's done. I have one left. So again, so the right side of the strip, the first strip, is right side's up, wrong side's down. Then the strip that you're joining, the right side's going to be down with maybe 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. Got a little quilting bling here. All right, I'm going to pull this up a little. Now, like I said, your right sides are together, okay? And you're basically making this L, all right? And because I don't like sewing straight lines, because you would just be sewing from this corner to this corner, but I want to make sure I'm straight and not wibbly wobbly. So I'm going to line up those corners. I'm going to take my disappearing marker. I'm going to draw me a line from corner to corner. And if you're worried about losing that shape,
you can take a pin, making sure it's far away from that, far enough away from that line so that when you're sewing, it doesn't hit that needle. And then we're just going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew straight along this edge. Okay, so here's the last strip that we did. I'm going to basically kind of move it out of the way a little bit. I'm going to add this strip that I have drawn a line on. It's kind of hard at this angle for me, but we're going to get this done. You want that corner to corner. And basically all we're going to do is just go ahead and sew that straight on down. Now this was our last strip, so I'm going to go ahead and cut threads. I'm going to pull out and show you the next step. Okay, so I decided to keep y'all close in because I wanted to show this to you. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you get all your strips sewn is, if you chain piece like I did, you want to snip all those pieces out, those little areas in between. So that is the first step to this part. Okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is you want to take out all your pins. And I wanted to show this to you. So remember, we sewed corner to corner. So when it opens, we've got a very nice mitered strip. Okay. But that's an awful lot of bulk. So the next part you're going to want to do is you want to take your scissors and make sure you're cutting on the right side, the correct side. And you want to cut about 1/4 of an inch off. Now you could use your ruler and a rotary cutter if you like, but being precise is not necessary. And if you notice, we do have some ears still, but I take care of those later, okay? The next step, and I'll meet you at my ironing board for this, at my pressing mat, and I would iron or press your seams open, because that's going to eliminate some of the bulk. So I will meet you next after you get all that done. I'll meet you next at my pressing board. See you in a sec. Okay, so here we are at my pressing board, and remember, there's more than one method. I'm just showing you mine, okay? And I usually go ahead of myself, so I'm at the first seam, and I'm going to set the seam first, like we talked about in my one of my basic beginner techniques video. And then I want to, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Then I'm going to press this seam open. And usually I give it a good finger press first to help keep it open. And then I lay that iron on top and give it a nice press. Okay. Now remember, I do it open because I'm eliminating some of the bulk. It could get really bulky, and I'm just trying to make it so that it's not as bulky. Then I go back to where I may have left off, but of course this is the first one, and you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to press this in half. Okay, and you're going to want to do this the whole way through for the entire binding strip. Remember, I'm showing you the double binding method, or the double fold method, or the French fold method. So many names. And then I'll show you what I do when I get up to the up to that first seam. So very easy. This isn't hard, just a little time consuming. Getting a nice fold in half here. All right, we're getting up to that first seam. I'm going to go ahead and fold it, and I'm going to go ahead and iron it. And if you'll notice, making sure that seam's open, if you notice, I still have those dog ears. Okay. I'm going to do it just one more past it here, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to snip those dog ears while I'm at it. All right. So, go ahead and snip them. Get the other one. There we go. And then I just keep on going a little further until I start to see the next seam. It's kind of a wreck, isn't it? All right. Like I said, this is not complicated. It's just a little bit time consuming. And we are folding it so that the right side is out and the wrong sides are together. Right in half. And I bet I'm coming up to a seam. Sure am. So again, I'm going to go ahead and set that seam. I'm going to open her up. Do a little finger press to help get it a little bit easier for me to iron or press. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead with the iron and press it open. And then I'm going to go back, finish up the iron. To that next seam. Here we are. Again, you'll see those dog ears. Okay. Whoop, not quite. I'm going to press it down just a little more here. There we go. Go a little past it. Make sure that seam was open. It was. Okay, go a little past it here. And then I'm going to go back and clip off those dog ears. So that is basically it. You just do this until you're all the way through the entire binding strip that you have created. So I'm going to finish this off camera and then I will show you the next part. Okay, so the next step is, after you've got your binding all folded and pressed in half, we're going to measure the binding just to make sure that it does in fact go all the way around and have some left over. If you took a look or you know anything or have gone to somebody else's binding calculator, and you'll always see that they add 10 inches to the total. And the reason for that is, first, it's for the corners. We're going to put a miter corner in there, so it takes some extra of that binding, plus the seams, and then of course putting it together. So what you want to do, and there's another reason this is very important. Not only do you want to make sure that you aren't going to run out of binding, and you do in fact have enough binding, but the other reason is you want to make sure as you're hitting those corners that you're not getting a seam in the corner, because that is a nightmare. So you pick a spot to start, okay? And I'm going to clip it because I'm going to think, okay, I may just start, you want about a 5-inch tail. It doesn't really matter where you start, but you want to give yourself a tail. And then I'm going to show you how to do a mitered corner at the sewing machine. However, you'll just basically go all the way around. Now my quilt's a little larger than this table, so I'm sliding it through. And like I said, when you get to the corner, make sure that you are not hitting a seam at that corner. Okay. Oh, whoop. Like I said, this quilt's a lot bigger than this table. But you just want to go all the way. Oop, pulled it just a little. Okay, just do a little bit more here. There we go. Down to this corner. Give it a miter. I also don't want it to fall off the table. Like I said, this is not a perfect count. It's just to make sure, because if you gave yourself 10 extra inches of binding, you truly should have plenty and not have to be perfect. Again, I'm not hitting any seams on the corners. So far, so good. And that is the last corner. So the only thing I'm doing now is making sure that I have some overlapping. Here's my tail, and I have plenty of overlap. I took this from a pattern and they told me how many strips, so I was kind of nervous to know whether or not I actually had enough, because I didn't measure. I just took the pattern's word for it. So there we have it. That is the next step. And like I said, I might want to pull it down just a little here. I'm picking a spot where I'm going to start. I'm going to give myself about 5-6 inches worth of the tail. And I'll see you at the sewing machine. Okay, we're at our sewing machine, and you want to make sure that the fold is facing inside towards the center of your quilt, and the raw edges or the open side of that fold are along the edge of your quilt, okay? Now, if you are going to do all machine binding, you would want to actually put the binding on the back and sew it on, and then flip it over and do machine quilting on the top to finish it. But I'm going to do machine quilting and then hand stitching. So you want to machine quilt on the top, and when we flip it, we're hand sewing onto the back. That's just a little FYI for you. And this is the way I'm demonstrating so you can see that. I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and when I get to the corner, I'll pull you in a little closer. If you have the needle down function, you want to go ahead and place that needle down. You are going to sew about 1/4 inch from on that line, the outside line. You want to sew in about 1/4 inch, and you'll see again, you'll see it a little closer here in a minute. You want to go ahead and do a couple of stitches, and then go ahead and back stitch a little bit. Get it nice and locked. Okay, here we go. And like I said, if you have a walking foot, load it now before you start sewing this part. It will help tremendously. Okay. And like I said, when I get down to the corner, I'll go ahead and pull you in. I just wanted to show you something really quick. When I get pretty darn close to the edge, I'm kind of particular. You don't have to do this. You can estimate what 1/4 inch would look like. Okay. But you're going to want to sew to about the 1/4 inch. So what I do is I line up my ruler, and then I just draw myself a little line to mark that 1/4 inch area. Okay, so I know when I get to this point then it's time to stop. Okay, so you're going to want to come down and up until about 1/4 of an inch. Go ahead and back stitch, okay? Cut threads. Then you want to take your tail and you want to go that way with it, making this nice straight line. This is the side that still needs to be sewn. This is the side that is sewn. So send it back, make a nice straight line. Should give you a beautiful 45-degree angle. You want that. Then you take that tail and you come back towards the side that you need to sew still. Okay? The most important part of this is that this fold is even with your quilt. If it's too short, it's not going to miter correctly. If it's too big, you're going to have a lot of bulk. So you really want to get that nice fold even with your quilt. So one more time. You came down, do a little back stitch, cut threads, take your tail, flip it back so it's nice and straight, makes that beautiful 45-degree angle. Pull it back towards the side that needs to be sewn still. And you should see that this is still open and the fold still towards the center. But you make sure that this fold is beautifully even with your quilt. Now, if you want to hold it there until you can go back to your machine, you can either clip it or you can pin it. And that way it'll stay where it needs to until you get back to your machine. Then you want to load about 1/4 of an inch in, give it a back stitch, and then go ahead and finish down to the end.
Okay, so I have mitered my last corner, and I have put the needle in, and I've done a little back stitch here. What I wanted to tell you was I put a little clip where I'm going to end. This is almost back to the beginning. So this is where I started. This is about where I want to finish. So 6 to 8 inches is really good to work with. So I put a little clip there to remind myself where to stop, okay? You could just eyeball it or you could use a pin. It's just a reminder so I don't keep going. So then you want to go ahead, get that last part done.
Okay, so we're going to join our 2 ends together. If you haven't cut the selvage off, you'll want to do that first. And then we want to go ahead and make a 45-degree line or an angle. So we want to open this up, line up our 45-degree line on the bottom here. Okay. And then what you want to do is take a marker and draw that 45-degree line. Okay. Then you're going to just take some scissors and you're going to cut along that 45-degree line. Okay. Now, you want to take the longer one, or the one that you finished with last. You want to open it up as best as you can. And you want to line it up along the edge of your quilt, like you were going to sew it. Okay. Then you want to take this that you just cut and you want to line it up on this one. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to trace that 45-degree line. Okay. just get this pretty good, because we're going to check it because we want to make sure that it's completely accurate. Okay, so you take your ruler again and you want to line up that 45-degree angle, and you can see that I wasn't quite straight. Okay, we're going to line that up, and we're going to draw the real line. Okay, this one right here. Now we want to add a 1/2 inch. That gives us a 1/4 inch for this and a 1/4 inch for this one. We want to draw it on this side because we're adding 1/2 inch. So you take your ruler again and you line up the 1/2 inch line along that 1/4 inch. And then you just want to make a new line of 1/2 inch. Again, take your scissors. This is nerve-wracking because if you mess up, that's a lot of fun. But cut that 45-degree angle. And then what you're going to want to do, let's move this quilt a little bit, make it a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so then just like we did before, you're going to open them up and you're going to put your right sides together. And it's really nice because we have our our angles that will match up together. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got about a 1/4 inch on each side. And then you're going to line those up, 1/4 inch on each side. You're going to want to pin it on each side. Oop, that's not straight. There we go. Line those up. And then just like we did before, you're going to sew from this angle here to this one here, which is about that 1/4 inch. And then when you lay it all flat and it's been sewn together, it should lay flat. So you want to go ahead and take care of the sewing, and we'll come back for the next part. Okay, so like I said, you want to sew those angles to those corners to corners. I'm going to do just a little back stitch just to be on the safe side here. You want to make sure that you're nice and flat, so you might have to bunch everything up because you've got a very limited space. And like I said, you want to make sure everything's flat. You're not sewing anything underneath anything it's not supposed to be. You want to make sure everything's lined up. Once you get your needle in there, you can go ahead and remove the first pin. I'm going to throw it in my bowl next to me here. And let's go ahead and sew. Corner to corner. I'm going to go ahead and remove the second pin. Once you get to that last corner, I'm going to give it one little back stitch. I'm going to cut threads, and here we go. I'll lay it all out, and guess what? It's perfect. Okay? It is absolutely perfect. It never happens on camera, I swear to you. So,
Once you have that, for that new seam that you made, you want to go ahead and press that seam open. You can just do a simple finger press, and you will have dog ears. You can either leave the dog ears or you can snip them. But now that it's laying flat, I am going to go ahead and stitch from where I left off before, giving a little back stitch again, and going to where I started, and then nobody is going to know where I started or stopped. That is the beautiful thing about this method of binding. Because like I said, there's a lot of methods. There's even a lot of methods on how to join. That's just the one that I use. So like I said, oh, I'm so excited it worked. You have no idea. I was worried because when you're on camera, you get one shot. And you know, just like you can see sometimes that stuff happens. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera, and then I'm going to show you how to do the hand stitching. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to hand stitch. Now I will say I got a piece of thread. It's about an arm's length. I went ahead and put a quilter's knot at the end, and if you don't know what a quilter's knot is or want to learn how to do one, I'll put a link in about right here so that you can go see that. Remember, we sewed on this top area, so now we want to flip it over. Okay, now our sewed line here gives us a nice guide. Okay, and remember, I'm using a darker thread. I should be matching the binding with my thread, not the backing. But I wanted you to be able to see some of this. Okay, so I'm going to start, probably about here so that you can also see how to do a corner. We're going to make those miters nice and pretty. So the first thing I do is I just go in here through one layer of fabric and I come out right at the fold. Okay, and what's making sure I don't go through the binding, because that's where I'm going to hide that knot. Okay, then we're going to flip this over, and I actually, remember I told you earlier I like to use Wonder Clips to hold things in place while I'm stitching. Some people use pins, some people don't use anything at all. Now I am right-handed, so you're watching me go, I know that sounds backwards, but I'm going from right to left. So I'm going in the opposite direction that we read. Now wherever you came out, you want to go back into the quilt. You want to go about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch right at that fold, making sure that you don't go through. Got to pull a string here. Let me go ahead and cut that while I'm here. You want to make sure that you're not going through where you're going to see it, okay? But you're going to come back out about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, and then you're going to pull it through. And then again, go back in, come out at the fold. I didn't go back in. Go back in, come back out at the fold, making sure you don't go through, and pull it through. And you want to keep doing this all the way around. Oop, I went through. Eighth of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Goodness, I can't get this one in. All right. Until we get to the corner. So as soon as we get to the corner, I'm going to show you how pretty you can make those miters
and how to get them to really stay for a long period of time. Perfect. Back in where you came out and back out at 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. And remember, you'd want to use matching thread to the binding. Whoops. All right, we're almost there. Of course, it might help if I don't go through all the layers. It's real important that you don't, or you'll have stitches showing on the top side, and you don't want that to happen. So it's kind of a habit for me. I just always flip it. Just to take a little peek. I'm actually going to pull that clip out. Now it is helpful too if you have a like a doll pencil, or like a wooden stiletto, or a chopstick, because when you get to the corner, it's always really helpful to punch out those corners really well for yourself, but it's not necessary. It is just helpful. Okay, we're really close now. Now this is a wonderful thing to sit down, and your TV can be running, or an audio book, or your favorite podcast, sitting in your great big comfy chair, or you know, having your feet propped. Very relaxing. It's another reason I really like it. Okay, so when you get close to that corner, what you're going to want to do, you wanted to flip this over, okay? And you'll notice that you got a nice miter, and that the fold goes under from this side and over from that side. And I like to take something if I have it. If not, you can, you know, just do the best you can. I'm using the needle. And you're going to want to fold down this end, okay? Make those meet up nice and pretty. And if you'll notice, my fold's on going that way this time, where the fold on this side is going this way. Okay, now I could actually punch this out a little bit better, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave it for now. I think I have a couple more stitches before I actually get there. Good. All right, now when you go into this and you're coming out, you want to come out at that point on the other side of that fold. Okay, go ahead and pull it through. And what I like to do is I like to do the same kind of thing going back in, and I'm going to come out on this fold about, you know, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. It's usually about 3 stitches. And remember, this is a darker color, and you want to match to the binding. And if you are matching to the binding, it helps hide that. But the stitch is called the blind stitch. Okay. And I'm going to do one more, and You'll notice we're going up, so we're going to have to come back down, right? So what we're going to do, we got our 3 stitches. And like I said, if this matched, you wouldn't see it as much. This time I'm going to go through this corner up here, and I'm going to try and come out of the corner on the other side. Okay? Now you have to figure out what way's most comfortable for you, because you're going to want to turn your quilt around. All right? And I have to think about this. So, here we go. So now I'm going to go back down. I'm going to go back in where I came in. I'm going to come out at a fold. And again, it's like 2 or 3 stitches down. This one I think is going to be 2. Yep. Nice and easy. Yep, it's 2. So I'm going to go back into that hole on this side. And I'm going to try to come out at the fold on the other side. Let me go ahead and turn this. All right. So now we're ready to continue our next portion. Okay. So here I am. I'm going to go basically back in, and I'm going to try to come out about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on that fold. All right, and then we'll do, and you're just going to keep on going. Until your quilt is finished. So that is your binding. That's how to get that stitch done. You know, and as you move along, you just take your pin, or you take your needle, or you hold the fold, whichever is your preferred method. And you're just going to keep on stitching till you get to the next corner, and then you're going to do the same thing over. So that's it. And like I said, when you're matching this thread, this hides that stitch so much, and it makes it just so beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And sewing it up, going in, sewing it on the back side, actually really truly does allow that miter to stay really well, and through washings it doesn't wear as fast. So I'm going to continue this. It won't be done for a little while because it's a very large quilt, but I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to sit down and really enjoy myself and try to relax. But in the meantime here, I'll see you all in just a second. Okay, so there is French binding, where we're doing machine on the top and hand stitching on the back. I hope that you find this useful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below. Also, you can email us at stoffer@haloinspired.com. And I will also be on Facebook Live today in the afternoon about 3 p.m. And if you have any questions, you can come on over and you can ask them there, and I'll answer them for you live. I'll also, I'm probably going to do another corner in a more of a thread that matches. I don't know if I have one exactly, but it'll be a lot closer so you can actually see some of the differences. But until then, I'm going to get this rolling. This is a pretty big quilt, so it's going to take me a while. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, right? But next week, we are going to be doing some walking foot easy quilting. I'm going to use one of my practice sandwiches, and I'm going to go through some easy stitches with you, so I look forward to that. That's a lot of fun. And until next time, may you continue to be inspired, productive, and joyful,
and never stop making those dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. Thanks for stopping by. See you soon.